All right, everybody, I want to go over 3 basic setups for fishing here in the Palm Bay area. And obviously we have a lot of really big bass and just great bass fishing here in the Palm Bay area. So many different lakes around here. Most all of them have a lot of aquatic vegetation in them, a lot of grass in them. So typically we're going to be using baits that you can fish in or around grass. And the first thing you need to have that works it probably works 11 months out of the year down here, except for when we get some cold fronts come through in the wintertime. But topwater. Topwater works really, really well. One is what we call a hollow frog. So you can see it's hollow inside, fish come up, bite down on it, the hooks pop up. This is very, very weedless, so it's really good for if you're fishing up in the thick grass or you see a lot of fish moving around up in the thick grass. This is my favorite one. This is a scum frog, launch frog, but there's a lot of good frogs out there on the market. Black works really well. A bluegill color works really well. This is a bluegill color. And then just any kind of regular frog color, they all work really well. That's one kind of topwater, and like I said, that's for fishing in the really thick grass. If you're going to fish in the more sparse grass, this is what we call a Walkin Topwater bait. So basically, just as you pull it through the water and twitch it through the water, it just kind of goes back and forth, and we call that walking the dog. So it's just walking back and forth. It's got treble hooks on it, so it's not very weedless. So you want to throw this in areas where the grass is all under the water or on the edge of the really heavy grass. So those are the 2 kind of topwater baits that we like to use. The next thing would be just a Texas rigged plastic worm. I had a little blah 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 going on there, didn't I? Got a little tongue tied. A Texas rigged plastic worm. This worm in particular, this is a net bait mega bopper. You can see it's got a little tail on the back, kind of twists around a little bit. I've got it on a 5/0 trocar hook and a little Freedom tungsten weight on the front of it there. I have a little bob, we call it a bobber stopper. Even though this is a sinker, we call it a bobber stopper. It kind of holds that sinker down against the hook. But what we want to do with this bait, to be able to throw it, like I said, there's a lot of grass down here in the Palm Bay area. We want to put about 1/4 of an inch of the hook down into the front of the worm like that. Bring it out, slide it up over this little bend part of the hook so it lays right there. And then we're going to take the worm itself, scrunch it up, and put the point of the hook inside that worm. So see, now it's nice and weedless, but when a fish bites down on it, the hook point pops out. So this will allow you to be able to take this and throw it right into the heavy grass and reel it back out of the heavy grass into the more open areas. And that's typically where you're going to get your bites, when it pops out of the heavy grass into the more open area. But like I said, rigging it like that, they call this a Texas rig. Even though we're in Florida, they call this a Texas rig, and it makes it very weedless. So that's a really good way to fish down here. And then the third way that you have to keep in mind is when the fish get really, really, really deep in the grass. And sometimes when our cold fronts come through, the fish will get really deep in the grass. And when I say deep, I'm not talking about deep as far as feet deep of the water, like 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 feet deep. I'm talking about they're probably in, 3 to 5 feet of water, but really, really, really thick grass. And so many times what happens with this really thick grass down here is that grass grows off the bottom. The grass kind of flowers out once it gets to the surface, right? So it creates what we call a mat. So you have all this matted vegetation on the surface, but what happens underneath that mat, that mat may be that thick on top of the water, but underneath of it, it's open, and the fish will really like to get underneath of that kind of stuff at certain times of the year. So we use what we call a punch rig, and it doesn't have anything to do with punching your enemy in the face. What this is 1.5 ounces. It's a big, heavy weight. We got one of those stoppers on the front of it again. Heavy braided line. This 65-pound line, braided line. I got a trocar hook on there, and the same way as we did with the worm, we just slide it up on the hook a little bit. We got our hook there, our heavy weight on it. Slide it up on the hook just a little bit. Pull it out, run it up over. You see this has a little keeper on it right here. You run the bait up over that keeper, and then put the point right back into the bait like that. So that'll keep it weedless. And then you actually take this and throw it up on what is that mat of grass, and then this is heavy enough to pull through there, and you'll be able to work it underneath that grass and catch those fish that are hiding out under the grass. So those are 3 things that you need when you come down if you're going to artificial fish. Now obviously you can come down, we have some great live bait fishing down here too. There's a lot of guides down here that you can get on Visit Space Coast's website and check that out. Check out some of those awesome guides. They can take you either artificial fishing or they can take you fishing with live bait. But these are 3 things for artificial. Like I said, the punch rig, you need just a regular plastic worm rig and some kind of topwater, whether it's a Walkin style bait or a frog. That's all you need. Come down here to the Palm Bay area, get around the edges of some of that grass, have you some fun right here in Palm Bay.